Hello, hope all is well. Now in this video, I wanted to show you how to create the placeholder animation, or you may call it the floating label effect. So we shall be building it out using a login form, but you can do it in any other place. User enters their email and password. So our focus will be on the input fields. We want to go into making the login form function. So I'll be using VS Code. I've gone ahead and created two files. That's the index.html file and style.css file. They are currently empty, but you can go ahead and use any IDE or text editor. So if I go into my index.html file, the extensions I'll be using, I'll be using animate. It's an extension in VS Code, but you can add it in your IDE. That allows me to write HTML faster, and then live server, it helps me run the HTML so that I see the changes instantly. So using the exclamation mark, I'll be able to write out all this, and that's it. And maybe open up the live server. So if I go to localhost 550, I'll be able to see what I've created. But for now, I think 5,500 is in use. Use 5,501. So that's it. That's what we have created so far. You see, we have the document as a title document and a blank viewpoint because it's an empty body. So let's work on that. To do, let me change my title to floating labels and add what I'll be needing in my body. So I want to show a form. Again, I'm using animate, and so after creating the form, I'll create a class, and that will be the input fields. In the input fields, I'll have an input, maybe for emails. Let me just say input instead of text. An input for email, and then a placeholder. Let me leave it blank, and then I would want the label, or what actually we are going to be working with to see it, its animation moving around. So in this case, it will be email. That's it. Maybe the password field too. I'll copy this down here. In this case, it will be password. Type password, and the label would be password. So after the label, I'll add the span and call it show. So this is what we shall see there in the password input field. So I also need our submit button. Type submit and give it a value, login. Then after that, we shall have a message. Let's call it the forgot password div. Forgot password div, and here I would have an italics forgot password. Like forgot password, then span text here, click here. That's it for the HTML. Maybe one more thing is we are going to link the CSS to this HTML file. So you can say link CSS. Let's link relationship style sheet, and the reference it is in the style.css file. The title here. So that's it for the HTML. let's move to the style.css file we created. That's over here, and in this, first let's work on our body. So work on our body, then give it a margin of 0, padding 0, padding left, and then we shall give it the full viewport with it. That's, and then the height still 100. So to send our login form, we shall just give it a display. Let me use flex, and then justify the content center, still align items center. Maybe give it a little bit of background color. I have a color in mind, so let's go with that. Font family, go with another. So I'll give it a box sizing of border box, and that's it for our body styles. So let's work on the, so we are done with styling the body, background color and so on. So let's work on the form styles, and maybe let me make this uppercase. That's the CSS here. So first I'll give it a height of 450 pixels, then the same way length 450 pixels. Maybe give it also background color of white. I'll give it a padding of 10 pixels, then 20 pixels. Okay, then give it a display of flex, and the flex direction is column. That's okay. We need to justify the content to center, and a border radius of 10 pixels, and that will be 83 pixels, 3 pixels, then 10 pixels, and we give it a color of black, but reduce down the alpha to maybe 0.2.4. Yeah, and that will be enough for our background color, just for our box shadow for now. So we have done with styling the form too. So let's move to the end. Let's center the heading before. So text align center. That's okay. So let's move to styling our input fields. So from our index.html file, we gave our input divs. We give it the input fields class. So we shall use that class selector to add some styles to it. So inside the styles file, let's go on the input fields, press input fields, and give it the styles. So we want it to have a position of relative, then take on the width 430 pixels, that's 20 pixels less than the parent, which is the form. Then the height of 40 pixels, then give it maybe a margin top to space them as we saw in the beginning, so 30 pixels. I guess that's it for the input fields. So Then let's work on the input field labels. This is the email and password. So input fields are not the labels, the inputs. So input, and I'll give it a width of 100% and height of still 100%. So it will take on the 40 pixels from the input fields. So after that, maybe I'll use the outline instead of the border, so I'll give it an outline of 1.5 pixels, solid black, and then give it the border equal to none. So the work somehow round, so we shall give them a border radius of, let's use 8 pixels. Give it a padding. So from the top to be 5 pixels, then from left to right, that's 10 pixels, and then the font size, that's 18 pixels. So that's it for the input fields. Let's work on the input labels. So for the labels, let's say input fields label, we'll give it a position of absolute, and we put it at the top of 15 pixels. Then left, that's 20 pixels, and keep it at the same font size, that's 18 pixels. Then maybe you give it a padding, vertical 0, then the horizontal padding of 5 pixels. That's it. So maybe give it a pointer event of 9. This will be helpful. Pointer events 9 to be helpful when we are working on that transition from moving it from here to up here. Speaking of that, give it a transition, position top, and it will take about 0.2 seconds. Give it a background color. Let's go with white, and the color, I already have a color, so it's RGB, and that's 99, 99, to make it look like the placeholders we saw in the beginning. So that's it for now with styling the labels. So maybe let's work on the show here, which is it's supposed to show the password or hide it. So let's work on it here. So in the index.html file, it is a span, so let's grab the span element, and so input from the span, same as the labels, we shall give it a position of absolute. So we give it the same top as the labels, which is 15 pixels, and with the left we push it to the extreme right. I'll try 400 pixels, and that's it. Yeah. So that's it with our show text. So I think let's work on the login button now. So still it's not in the input fields. Let's check from the index.html file. I think it's here. Let's give it an ID of btn. So styling it here, we shall use the ID selector, which is it was btn, and style it. So for our button, maybe first we would want to give it a margin top of 30 pixels. Give it a padding, vertical padding of let's give it a vertical padding of, let's go with 1020 still. This is the same as our other input fields. Input fields, give it a border of none. and then let's give the text of the color of white, and then its background color, so to keep the uniformity, it's the same color as the body. I'll need the border radius, so border radius I'll give it the same as the others, which was 10 pixels, I guess, not 10, 8. Then we give it a font size, still 18 pixels. We increase on its weight, so the font weight we shall go with bold. I think that's okay for the button. Oh, maybe the cursor, so I would want the cursor to be a pointer. So that's it for the button. So from the index.html file we have these links here. Now forgot password, then click here. So it has an ID of forgot password, and we have a span. So let's style this too. Let's style the forgot password. So using the ID selector, forgot password. First I'll go for the span, which is our link. I'll give it a text declaration of an underline. Click here, and maybe give it also a cursor of pointer. So that's okay. Maybe text align center. So from the forgot password, so I'll give it a text align center. Put that in the middle. Maybe margin top also 10 pixels. So that's it. Oh, great. So now we get to work on the different input states. So what we want to happen when a user enters some value in here. You see they're entering the value, but we have an email there. Then so first let's go back to the inputs, and you would want to change something when the user enters, when it is in focus. So I'd say the input fields, then the input when in focus. Then we'll change the outline to 2 pixels solid. Then the color would want it to have. So in case I'm in focus right now, it changes. Maybe you're not seeing the change because our outline before is a bit big, so change it to 1.4. You can see the change when it is in focus. Okay, so another thing I would want is when it is in focus, this email placeholder or label, it should go up above this field. So whenever I click this and I'm typing something, I would want this email to be above here. So I shall say the input fields, when the input is in focus, then since the label is on the same level as the input, so I'd say I'd want my label to change its position. Let's go to the top of, so it's 15, let's take it to the top of negative 10 pixels. So if I focus this, you see the email goes to negative 10, and that's great. Maybe change it the color, because when you're in focus, you see our color is the primary color I've been using. So I'll change the color of the label to my primary color, which is that. So focus the password, focus that. Okay, this is working out. So I think we need to push it a little bit to, let me see the padding I gave it. the padding we give the inputs. With the label. So I give it a padding of 0 to, if I change this to 10, I guess this will be enough. Okay, not the padding. Let me change the left side and see. Okay, this is better. So we get to see the the placeholder move above, or the label move to the top when the input field is in focus. But then you see something is, maybe let me use John Doe. So when it is in focus, the email is above here, but then when I leave that and go to the password input field, the email comes back down here, and that's not what we want. We want it to stay up there as long as the input field is not empty. And we are doing this with only CSS. So to do this with only CSS, we would want to make sure that the input field is not empty. And we can do that by checking that the placeholder is not shown. When you input something, the placeholder is not shown, but when you don't input anything, there is an empty placeholder here. So we'll come here to our input field, pick out the input, then in the pseudo element would say not, then look for the placeholder shown. So here we are negating the placeholder. If the placeholder is not there, then we would want to keep our label up there. So label at the top of negative 10 pixels, and the color too, that. So this is the same as this. We'll do and put them on the same line. So if I come back to this, you see since it is not empty, the email stays up there. If I move this and leave, then it's down. If it is in focus, it is up there, down. So that's what we wanted to create. So Jumbo gmail.com, and he has that is passwords, and you can log in. So that's it. That's what we wanted to show you guys. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please hit the like button, and thank you.